Let me ask you the most uncomfortable question of the year. If the power went out right now, no warning, no countdown, no second chance, how long before your home turns into a trap? Be honest. 10 minutes? 4 hours? 3 days? Would you survive, or would you spiral like the 97.9% of Americans who do the exact same boneheaded thing the moment the grid goes down and then spend the next 72 hours drowning in regret? Because here's the truth no one likes to hear. Blackouts aren't rare anymore. They're not freak events. They're rehearsals for collapse. In 2024 alone, there were over 480 large-scale outages in the U.S. That's more than one every 18 hours. And the average duration of those outages, 7 hours, minimum. Some stretched into days, others into weeks, and that's just what we know about. You think you're immune because you live in a developed country. Wrong. Ask the people of Texas in 2021. Ask New York in 2003. Ask California any year. Pick one. The lights went out, and people froze, boiled, starved, and burned. Some died holding flashlights with dead batteries. Some died lighting candles they never should have. Some died simply because they didn't act in time. What do 97.9% of people do when the power cuts? They wait. They hesitate. They assume it's temporary. They don't fill the bathtub. They don't unplug the stove. They don't grab the flashlights. They don't communicate. They don't lock down. They don't think ahead. They do nothing. And then everything collapses, minute by minute. And I get it. You're thinking, come on, it's just a blackout. But what if it's not? What if this isn't just a downed line or a blown transformer? What if it's a cyber attack on the grid? What if it's a domino effect from another wildfire or heat dome? What if this is the start of a nationwide outage that lasts days or longer? Because here's a chilling stat. The U.S. electric grid is over 40 years old. It wasn't built for this century. It wasn't built for superstorms, megafires, or rolling blackouts. It was built for a 9-to-5 America that doesn't exist anymore. And when it fails, you're on your own. This video is not just a checklist. It's not a life hack or some prepper fantasy. This is your first 10-minute plan for when everything shuts off. Not hours later. Not once the chaos has already started. Immediately. Because what you do or what you fail to do in the first 10 minutes of a blackout will define whether this is just a long night or the worst week of your life. Let's break it down. 97.9% of people do this in a blackout, and 97.9% regret it. You don't have to be one of them, but you need to move fast. Here's what to do instead, before it's too late. 1. Boyd, doing nothing. The one regret of 97.9% of people who lose power. But here's what 97.9% of people do during a blackout that absolutely dooms them. Nothing. They sit, they wait, they scroll, they complain, they look out the window as if a utility truck is going to roll up their driveway with an apology and a latte. They convince themselves the power will be back soon. It always comes back quickly, right? That false optimism has killed more people than the storm itself, because the real enemy in a blackout isn't the dark, it's inaction. And inaction is the cancer of crisis response. Let's get brutally honest. Most Americans are soft. They've never had to live without heat, without cold water, without light, without the ability to microwave their third snack of the hour. And when the grid fails, and it will, they sit around waiting to be rescued. They think someone's coming. Newsflash, no one is coming. In widespread outages, emergency services are jammed, roads are blocked, supplies are gone in minutes, and the average American household has less than 3 days of food and less than 1 day of water per person, according to FEMA. You think you've got time? Think again. In 2023, the average duration of major outages in the U.S. increased by 43% compared to 2015. That's not a blip, that's a trend. And in disasters like Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, power wasn't restored for 328 days in some regions. You still want to wait and see? Doing nothing in the first 10 minutes is like watching the opening credits of your own personal disaster movie and thinking the plot won't involve you. You should be executing your checklist with military precision. Flashlights, water fill-up, communication, fridge lockdown, hazard sweep, and environmental control. Instead, 97.9% of people sit on the couch and refresh their utility app. Then, when the outage stretches from hours to days, they go into full panic mode, wishing they had taken those first moments seriously. Wishing they had filled the tub. Wishing they had unplugged that surge-prone $2,000 TV. Wishing they hadn't eaten the cold cuts in hour 1 when the fridge was still cold. But wishes don't restore power. Action does. In the first 10 minutes, you don't hope. You move. You secure. You adapt. You accept that this may not be short. It may be the new normal for the next 72 hours. Or longer. Because the grid isn't getting better. Climate isn't getting nicer. And your utility provider isn't sending you a generator. You are plan A, B, and C. Doing nothing guarantees regret. Taking action guarantees survival. Which side are you on? 2. forgetting that you're on your own, and the system is designed to abandon you. Here's the cruel, infuriating reality. The system is not built to save you. In fact, the system expects you to be a casualty. That's the dirty secret. When the grid collapses, FEMA, your state, your local power company, they already know that they're going to lose a percentage of people. They just hope it's not high enough to make headlines. And guess what? 97.9% of Americans don't realize during a blackout that they've already been written off. You don't believe me? Let's look at how the system performs. In the 2021 Texas blackout, 911 systems failed across the state. Calls dropped. Emergency services were overwhelmed. In one county, they asked people not to call unless someone was actively dying. What do you do with that? Sorry, ma'am, your house is 38 degrees and your toddler is blue, but unless he stops breathing, please stay on hold. In California, public safety power shutoffs are routine. The utility preemptively kills power to millions to avoid wildfires, and they warn you after the switch has been flipped, not to help you, to protect themselves from lawsuits. You think the government has a generator for every family? They don't. You think the Red Cross has a cot waiting for you? Not unless you get in line now. In a crisis, systems triage. Or that's a nice word for prioritizing some people and letting others fend for themselves. If you're in a rural area, disabled, low income, or on the outskirts of town, congratulations, you're last on the list. You think your phone's gonna be your lifeline? After 6 hours without grid power, most cell towers are offline or degraded. The FCC says only 1 in 5 towers nationwide has more than 8 hours of battery backup. You think Elon Musk's Starlink is saving you? Maybe, if you bought it. Most haven't. The system is not coming. That neighbor with the backup generator and stocked pantry? He's your lifeline now, if he shares. And most won't, because when it gets cold and dark and desperate, people stop being nice. After Hurricane Katrina, gun violence spiked, looting was rampant, and neighborhoods locked down. Community vanished. You're not just on your own, you're competing with other desperate people. So the second that power dies, understand this, you have no backup, no cavalry, no guaranteed rescue. You are the first responder, the medic, the supplier, the defense perimeter, forgetting that will cost you everything. A blackout is not a time to be idealistic. It's a time to be realistic, ruthlessly realistic. Assume no help is coming. Act like your life depends on your first 10 minutes, because it does. If you get lucky and the lights come back, great. But if they don't, you're already 2 steps ahead, while the rest are wondering when the cavalry's going to show. Spoiler, it's not. 2. Not locking down your house. Vulnerability is a siren call in a blackout. This is where things get really raw, and nobody wants to talk about it. Blackouts make your home a target. Period. The second the lights go out, so do the cameras, the alarms, the deterrents. Your security system, dead. Your porch lights, gone. That illusion of safety you felt when your Ring camera buzzed every time a squirrel passed by, vaporized, and 97.9% of people just sit there thinking, well, the neighborhood is safe. No, it was safe because the grid made it so. Welcome to what happens when the lights go out for real. You think opportunists aren't watching? Criminals love blackouts. No cameras, no visibility, no resistance. Police response time skyrockets during outages because of traffic light failures, call surges, and overwhelmed dispatchers. And guess what homes get hit first? The ones with lights on inside but nothing on the outside. The ones fumbling in the dark. The ones clearly unprepared. You are now a blinking neon sign that says, weak spot, no defense. In New York's infamous blackout of 1977, over 1,600 stores were looted, 1,000 fires were started, and 3,700 arrests were made in 25 hours. People turned animal overnight. It doesn't take a major city either. Small towns have seen pharmacy break-ins, grocery store raids, and home invasions after prolonged outages. Especially when people are cold, hungry, and scared. That's when society's thin veneer tears wide open. So what should you do in those first 10 minutes? You lock down. Doors bolted, windows checked, blinds shut, curtains drawn. You don't advertise your preparedness. You minimize light from inside escaping into the street. You get your tools and gear within arm's reach, flashlight, phone, maybe even your legal firearm or deterrent. You set a rotation if you're not alone. 1 person on light duty, 1 on security check, 1 on comms. This is not paranoia. This is defensive readiness. And if you think that could never happen here, you're already at risk, because that's what every victim says after the fact. Power is control, and when it's gone, so is order. If you don't have a plan to secure your home in the dark, someone else will make plans for you. Blackout plus chaos, opportunity for predators. Lock down, stay quiet, stay alert, and don't become the soft target 97.9% of your neighbors are about to become. 3. Ignoring the psychological spiral, because panic doesn't start with a scream, it starts with a whisper. Here's what really separates the survivors from the statistics: mental fortitude. And almost no one talks about it. Because in the silence of a powerless house, when your phone dies, your fridge is warm, your kids are scared, and your plans are unraveling, that's when panic sets in. Quietly, relentlessly. And if you're not ready for it, you're screwed. Because 97.9% of people confuse stillness with safety. But blackouts are a mental game, and the clock is ticking on your composure. Within the first 10 minutes, your family looks to you, your spouse, your children, your elderly parent. They're watching your face for clues. You grimace or sigh. They panic. You hesitate. They freeze. And when that cold creeps in, or that heat becomes unbearable, and the lights don't flicker back on, anxiety metastasizes. Your thoughts race. What if this lasts days? What if food runs out? What if someone gets sick? You try to mask it, but kids can smell fear like dogs. They'll mirror it. Your household atmosphere becomes toxic, not from carbon monoxide, but from fear and doubt. And here's what makes it worse. If you didn't do the checklist, didn't fill water, didn't get flashlights, didn't secure food, then you'll know you failed. And that shame eats away at your calm. You'll regret every missed step. That regret festers into hesitation, then into paralysis. By hour 6, you're snapping at your family, burning through supplies and stuck in a downward emotional spiral. And in long outages, mental health becomes as much a danger as temperature or hunger. The key: act first, then lead, then stabilize. In the first 10 minutes, check off everything like you're on autopilot. Build momentum, control the controllables, then stabilize your emotional environment. Light a lantern, speak calmly, play a board game, read aloud. Give your kids something to do. Give your partner roles. Everyone has a job. That's not just logistics, it's psychological anchoring. Because in the end, it's not just the cold or dark that defeats people, it's the feeling of helplessness. And if you let that in, you're already losing. The power may be out, but your willpower better be fully charged. Or else, you're the next cautionary tale of someone who crumbled when the lights went out. You can survive a lot, but only if your mind does first. 4 point, they treat every blackout like it's the last. They assume it's a one-off, a freak occurrence, a storm that passed. They never learn. They never improve. They never prepare harder next time. And so they get burned again and again, until eventually, it's not a lesson, it's a loss. Let me hit you with cold facts. In 2023, the US experienced over 480 major power outages, up from just 76 in the year 2000. Climate events are more severe, the grid is more fragile, and demand is skyrocketing. Wildfires, hurricanes, winter bombs, cyber attacks, drought-induced failures, the causes are multiplying. You think it's bad now? Just wait until next summer, or the one after. Blackouts are no longer rare, they're scheduled programming. But 97.9% of people breathe a sigh of relief when the power comes back, and then do nothing to upgrade their preparedness. They don't buy a generator. They don't fix their kit. They don't review what went wrong. They just go back to Netflix and frozen pizza until the next one hits. That's the definition of insanity. Repeating the same mistake, expecting different results. The smart 2.1%, they treat every blackout as training. They debrief. They document what worked, what failed. They upgrade flashlights, refill the first aid kit, buy more water storage, get backup batteries, restock meds. They prepare like it's going to happen again because it will, and when it does, they don't blink. They execute. They stay calm, and everyone else looks at them like prophets. But it's not prophecy, it's pattern recognition. So don't be 97.9%. Be the house that learns, evolves, adapts. The house that treats power outages like drills for something bigger. Because one day, it won't be a drill. One day the lights might not come back for a long, long time. And then what? Will you be caught making the same mistakes, or will you already be miles ahead? Choose now, because the next blackout is already on its way. 5 pointing that your supplies are probably fine, and realizing too late that they're not. Let's talk about false confidence, the most silent, seductive killer in any blackout scenario. 97.9% of people who have prepped for an outage fall into this trap. They assume their emergency supplies are good to go, just because they were stashed somewhere years ago. They've got a bin labeled Blackout Kit in the garage, a dusty case of bottled water in the basement, and a crank radio they haven't touched since 2014. They think we've got stuff, we're fine. No, you're not fine. You're delusional. Because in a real outage you find out exactly how unprepared you really are, and by then it's too late to fix anything. Let me break it down. Those batteries you bought in bulk, if you didn't rotate them, they've probably leaked acid and turned into tiny time bombs that will corrode your gear the second you try to use them. That flashlight you last tested during Obama's first term, click click nothing. Dead. The canned goods, rusted or expired. The emergency blanket, torn. The water purifier, missing a crucial filter cartridge. Oh, and your full tank of propane. It's at 8% because someone used it for the grill last July and never refilled it. This isn't theoretical. This is what happens 97.9% of the time when people crack open their emergency stash in a crisis. They're hit with a wave of sickening realization. This stuff doesn't work. And let's not even talk about the gear they thought they understood. That camp stove that needs a specific type of fuel canister? Good luck finding that during a statewide blackout. The manual crank radio takes 12 minutes of turning to get 3 minutes of static. That solar charger you bought on Amazon for $19.99. It can barely charge a toothbrush, let alone your phone. People are out here buying survival gear like it's a fashion accessory, never testing, never practicing, never learning how to use any of it, and then wondering why they're scrambling while the lights are out, sweating bullets, squinting at product manuals by candlelight. Preparedness is not about hoarding junk. It's about knowing your tools, maintaining them, testing them, rotating them. It's about using blackout-free weekends to run full simulations. Lights off, gear out, no phones, no cheats. See what actually works. Do your kids know how to use the crank flashlight? Does your partner know where the fire extinguisher is? Have you practiced making coffee without electricity? Because let me tell you, a caffeine withdrawal on day 2 of no power is the kind of psychological warfare that can tear families apart. Trusting your dusty gear pile is a gamble. You're betting your comfort, your sanity, maybe even your survival, on a bunch of untested supplies that haven't seen the light of day since Y2K. That's not readiness, that's wishful thinking dressed up in a plastic tote. Don't be the family that breaks out the blackout box and finds nothing but disappointment and expired granola bars. Be the one that tests, retests and updates, quarterly, religiously, obsessively. Because when the grid fails, your preps either perform or they betray you. There is no in-between. So open that kit, right now, check every item, replace what's dead, add what's missing, run drills, and if you don't have a kit, build one. Because in a world where the lights are increasingly unstable, the biggest blackout regret of all is realizing you were never truly prepared.